You are listening to Unfuck Your Mind with the real, raw, colorful, authentic, empowering, control profanity loving human Zach Lyotis, soul activator, master key holder, and intergalactic elder. Zach loves to find lessons in adversity to advocate humanity one listener at a time. She also enjoys having fun along the way. Check her out at zachlyotis.com to see what she's up to. But for now, let's pass it off to Zach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unfuck Your Mind. I'm your host, Zach Lyotis. In today's podcast, I have Sherri Bagwell. Sherri is an energy worker and meditation coach, a channel of divine light, a vibrational catalyst and alchemist who disrupts your looping and limiting thought patterns, allowing you to tap into your own awareness and strengthen your intuition through dissolving trauma, separation from source in your DNA. Sherri's purpose is always to empower you to be the best version of yourself, helping to birth in you the confidence to know what that is and trust your own divine guidance. Sherri carries big energy that allows you to get into a meditative state with ease and gives you the tools to get back into that state on your own. Welcome, Sherri, to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I enjoy talking to all these women that are, sharing their light with the world, and I could feel your energy. And yes, it is big energy. It's massive energy. It's so much, and it feels good.
Thank you.
It feels radiating. Yeah. So talk to us. When did you get into doing energy work and becoming a meditation? I wanted to say teacher when I was reading that, and because spirit takes over my mouth sometimes, and I was about to say teacher, and I'm like, but it says coach. When did you get into all that?
I'm not really pedantic about the words, but
Yes.
So, I had a real deep connection with energy when I was a child, and nobody really understood it. So I kind of put it away. But through developing health problems in my teens and 20s, when I was about 32-ish, I was supposed to have a hysterectomy, and I went to an energy worker who helped me heal my body within about 3 months. And from the very first session, all my sensations came back and all my memories came back about, what this feels like. And so it's been a deep dive pretty much ever since then for, I guess, 15 or so 16 years of kind of unpacking everything that is involved with the energy that moves through our body to create awareness and consciousness and health and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah. And you know what? And that's exactly what I feel. And it's so funny how you say like the words don't, bother me. And it's true because titles don't do anything for me. So regardless if you want to say a meditation teacher, meditation coach, meditation mentor, whatever it is, go ahead. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot more than just that word that brings it to us. But I understand when you're saying you felt it when you were younger, but no one understood and you had to put it away. Because I felt the same way as well. And even though it came out in doses when I was going through depression, I would have that, come on, you could do this. You're different, this could happen. I'm like, yeah, but this is starting to drive me crazy now. Like I have no one to talk to about this that goes on, this energy, whatever. I never even knew what to call it. I used to call it air just talking to me. Like I used to be like, oh yeah, air just tells me things. Like I had no rhymal understanding of like the whole spirit or anything like that. I just thought it was normal that everyone has it. And, it does close a lot of doors when you have no one to really express yourself at that age.
Yeah. And it was even difficult when I started to interact with it in my early 30s. There was still not a lot of people to talk to about that. And so I do thank goodness for the internet.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for Facebook, where I've met and actually then gone in person to meet these people who understand what's going on and helped me hone how to work with people in my local community. And I'm in Birmingham, Alabama now. And it is amazing how many people are waking up and showing up and are exceptionally interested and have, you know, all the sensations as well, and knowingness. And it's so fun in this time now, where it is easier to find people.
It is refreshing. It's so refreshing. Let's talk about the separation from source in your DNA, because yeah, I know, right? Because here in Toronto, there is a campaign that goes on every year, and it triggers me to no extent. It's about depression. I went through depression. I talk about depression all the time. And, you know, a lot of people market this thing as depression as a one-day thing. And I'm like, this is an everyday occurrence people go through. And it is a separation of source within your own being. So I want to hear from you about the separation of source in your DNA.
Well, you know, I think it actually starts out, you know, relatively innocently when your parents take you to church. And the Catholics do it to a greater degree, that you actually have to go through a priest in confession to for that. But anything where you see God outside yourself is separation from source. Even if you have a good relationship with, be it the trees or Jesus or anybody, you've got to understand that your beingness is a stream of God consciousness, that you have the ability to create your reality. You certainly can't necessarily impact the people around you, but when you have that sense and understanding that you are source, that you are a creator being, and it takes a while, really, it's a process to learn to love yourself and forgive yourself, and trauma is passed down in the DNA. Yeah. Anytime you take a stance to act out violence, you are separate from source. And anytime that you are a receiver of violence, that also kind of creates separation. And it has been proven that does travel down through the DNA. And it has also been proven that we can soothe that and restore that and come back to a place of embodiment where you go, oh, right, yes, I am source consciousness in this human body that is filled with DNA. And once you really start to understand that and come to a place of love and forgiveness within yourself for all the things that you've done that are bad and wrong, then it's easy to find compassion for other people who've done things that are bad and wrong. And then things start to make sense.
Yeah. I so get that. So get that. I had to go through a whole forgiveness while someone was duping me. And I remember Spirit saying to me, you need to forgive them because it's not even about them. It's just about you. And it's so funny that you say that, because I always talk about, I am God. I am Jesus. I am the Messiah. And people look at me like, no, you're not. And I'm like, oh, no, I am. I am that I am. And it took a while to get to that point. And it was during my drive to New York. It was, you know, my 10-hour drive to New York, and I fell asleep. My sister's driving, and I opened my eyes and I looked at her, I'm like, I am the Messiah. And she went, you're a crackerjack. That's what you are. And I just kept on repeating it over and over. And I'm like, she goes, would you stop? And I said, I don't know why it keeps on coming out of my mouth, but this is the Messiah. I am the Messiah. Then I have to really listen to that message that we are one. We are the omnipresence of this source light that comes forth. So it takes a lot of work to get you there.
You know, it seems like that. But in the last stages, it becomes fun. I for myself.
Yeah.
But I also think I went about it the long route um, in giving my power away to different modalities and different processes and, various things. But what I teach my people who come to my classes and private sessions is that it's self-love. It really comes down to self-love. And in the first stages of that is hard. Yes. But once I brought in that piece, that it was the programming, once people get that, and that's going faster and faster, I noticed with each person I get to work with. And it might be the people I get to work with, but it's probably just the time period, that the amount of energy, the Schumann resonance, the, all that kind of stuff. That when people understand that it's in the DNA, that sinful nature that you were born with, the church calls it's program. It's not your soul that had that. When you get that, it becomes a whole lot easier and faster to get to that state of, realization and acceptance. And
I got the word peace.
Yeah, peace.
The best word you could use, just peace. That's the only word, really, because when you are connected to that source light, you are at peace with everything inside of you. You're at peace with your fears. You're at peace with your traumas, your peace that you're suffering. You're at peace with everything. And you're right. It is now that this time that we're living in, everyone says there's heaven, there's this veil. I'm like, there is no veil. There's heaven on earth right now when you look at it that way. When I went through depression, I kept on saying, God, why did you bring me to hell? This is hell living here. And it was so interesting, right? He literally I had to switch it all up.
Yeah. Well, but you can have hell here on earth, or you can have heaven here on earth. And it really is your choices in how you look at the world, and your situation and your circumstances that determine whether you are living in heaven or hell or somewhere in between.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's true. You could have everything. And I always say, hey, heaven has it all too. You think heaven is a clear slate? They have it all there. What you see on earth is what you have going on in heaven too. So that's amazing. So what is the processes that when you work with clients to empower them? I feel like there's so much.
Well, there's so many layers of things that are going on, and it depends on where you're at, how we start. So, I feel what goes on in your body. And so I will, sometimes there's just a recognition of the things that are pent up, whether they are anger or disappointment or confusion or whatnot. We love the part of us that feels all of those things. And lately we've been doing this really great thing with eye movements, closing your eyes and moving your eyes around. And this is not like that EMDR or whatever. I mean, maybe it is, but it's something that just came in intuitively. When I do a session, I move my consciousness, like my personality and everything. I just kind of move it over and open up. And my higher self comes in and just knows what to do. I don't really have any other way to explain it. So.
I love that you say it. I just told my spiritual teacher the other day, I said, Lama, I know you're going to tell me not to say this, but I really have no idea what I do sometimes, but I really do. I know what I'm doing because all I need to do is listen.
Right.
And he starts laughing. He goes, but you're doing it. You're listening. That's all you need to do. So you know what you're doing.
Absolutely. And so we've been moving our eyes. Like I'll close my eyes and my eyes start moving, and I coach you to move your eyes. And I am finding, like, I found fear sits in the I
call it the eighth chakra, just underneath your skull.
Yeah. So as we are moving our eyes in various patterns, and it's almost like everybody gets a different pattern. I'm not using the same eye movements. So we're creating spaciousness and new neural pathways in the conscious parts of our mind. And then we feel this great release from the top of the spine, the base of the brain. And what people are telling me is it puts them deeper than they've ever gone before. And like the first day it happened to me, like the next day I had like old teenage thoughts, coming up, and it was like funny. I was laughing at them going, oh my gosh, you've just been hiding out in there for 20, 30 years, however long, that's been. And then came in this peace at a level that I just can't describe. And people are telling me that too. It's like, oh, I saw it so clearly, this pattern that I'd been engaging in that I never knew the source of or had control over. And now I can laugh at it and not laugh at it like you're making fun of it, but it's like, oh my gosh, I bought that. For how long did I buy that? And it's like, and now it's non-existent.
Yeah.
And so it's just, and then I'll give you this one example, and it's just to a beginner, this might actually sound a little bit heartless, but it's really not. It's peace. So my brother was diagnosed with cancer, and over the course of 2 weeks, we discovered how thoroughly it's moved through his body, and stage 4 in the liver, and the doctors initially gave him zero hope. They're like, we can extend your life. That's the best thing we can do. It's not going to be very long. And so initially I went into like the sadness and the tears and the crying and, his family, he's got kids in high school, and my parents and, all that. And within a really reasonable amount of time, I was able to pull myself out and go, you know what? He's sovereign. He is also God. He also has a connection to source. He has the potential for alchemy. He could heal himself. And if he doesn't, I also know that still has purpose. One of the big things in my life that brought me to where I am is my first favorite person on the planet died when I was 30. And it's still sad that he can't like hug me and pick my feet up off the ground and that I'll not deny that I miss that. But from the other side, he spoke to me and he brought me to yoga. He brought me to healing my body. He brought me to healing my mind and brought me to where I am it to a certain degree. And yes, I followed. Yes, I had willingness, but I also had this intimate relationship, and he was my brother-in-law. It wasn't intimate like people think of. But it's like, you know what? So if my brother chooses to help from the other side, how can I complain about that? And it's this peace in me that knows that this is his path. And I've allowed my parents to have their experience with it, and my sister have her experience with it, and I bring them just a love and an understanding, and I don't try to convince them to see things my way, but I talk to them about my way, and it's peaceful in this chaos. And that's the best thing that I can offer, is that we are going to have our human experience. But we can feel sovereign and see other people as sovereign in the process of humanity.
Ooh, so beautiful, so deep. I gotta take all that in because it's true. It's true. We are that light essence that could heal whatever we want to heal. And if we allow for that light to come through and not allow for the doubt to take place, anything that you are looking for to heal, to create, to manifest will always show up in front of you. I'm a true believer in that on all levels, because I have this conversation with God all the time. I always say Jesus because he's my homeboy, but I always have this conversation with Jesus. Every morning I'll have a conversation with him and be like, so what are we doing today? Like, what's going on today? Where are you guiding me to today? Mm-hmm. Because when I didn't do that and I allowed for the ego to step forward, I ended up in depression for 2 years. Mm-hmm. It was Jesus, my homie, my brother, my everything, that pulled me out and said, hey, are you tired yet? Are you tired? Have you learned your lesson yet? Are you tired? And I said, yeah, I am. Now I'm starting to get panic attacks. I'm tired. Mm-hmm. And I just, within 21 days, my life changed. And the only reason it took 21 days, it actually happened overnight, really. But 21 days, because I had to rewire my whole mind to get an ego and allow for that spirit to take forth. And it was so interesting because people said, you came out blazing out of 2.5 years of depression. I said, I don't even want to call it depression. I call it an awakening, because in those 2 years, I learned a lot about myself.
You know, I think that depression is a valuable experience. Mm-hmm. You know, what I kind of believe you were in is, you know, some people call that the dark night of the soul. And it's mm-hmm. the witnessing of the darkness that was in your DNA that had to rise out, that had to be witnessed, that had to be loved. And even if you couldn't love it, you had your brother there, Jesus, who could love mm-hmm. it for you. Mm-hmm. And so when people are telling me that they're depressed, and you know, I just say, congratulations. Like, let's look at this as the gift that it is. Mm-hmm. You know, I've had, you know, my dips and, you know, whatnot. I don't know anybody who has achieved any level of peace and connection who hasn't spent time in their humanity and being saddened by, you know, what they see and you know, who they feel they are before they wake up. Mm-hmm. I would love to meet someone who didn't have to go through that.
Yeah. And we all have to go through it. I mean, I remember Oprah, and I'm using this, I don't even know why, but it's coming forward. But I remember Oprah when she started the OWN network, mm-hmm. and everyone told her she was going to fail. And I remember her telling this story, and she said, I had to get silent because, you know, she was starting to feel all this anxiousness from other people. And she had to get silent in her own self to see if this was the right move for her to make. And she says, I had to get into that place. And it was because of all the outside noise that was coming to her. And she got the message, no, it's the right move for you. And she said, you know, I just did it. I'm getting goosebumps over my body saying this. And it was like, no, she just did it. And we look at celebrities or influencers and we wonder, for them it's easy, but what they don't show is that they have that emotion as well. We all have that emotion.
We do, but this is what I call embodiment, is mm-hmm. the, like, you know, everything tells me in my mind, tells me not to do this, but I can't stop my body from moving towards this. Yeah. And every time that happens, it's like, oh God, that was so good. Like, who would have known that this could work out like this? I'm so glad that I allowed that force to move through me. Yeah. And do it for me.
Yeah. And it just feels so remarkable after you have no idea where it's going. You have no idea what's going to happen, but you're just allowing for it to present itself to you in any which way. Yeah. Whew, wow. I love that we're both shaking up. It's like, it's so true. And that's why having these intimate conversations with men and women in order for our awakening process to happen is extremely important, because life is not always roses, right? Life is a place where we learn about ourselves in order to thrive. And I hear Spirit wants to talk about the spiritual DNA. Can we talk about that?
The spiritual DNA?
Yeah.
Tell me what you mean by that.
Well, spiritual DNA, like, just like we were talking about the 8th chakra and how You have people close their eyes and everything changes for them. And it was so interesting because I heard, because she's tapping into their spiritual DNA. She's showing people a different way of seeing their life. She's showing people that sense of, this is who you thought you were, putting yourself in that place, but this is truly who you are.
Well, I definitely know that I introduce you to who you truly are.
Yes.
And that we are bringing that physically, alchemically down into the tissues of this body. But I feel like you might be actually leading me in a different direction. So we know with all these like DNA tests and whatnot that it doesn't matter what you look like, your DNA is from all over the world. Mm-hmm. So what my realization has been recently is that all of these ascended masters that people have been working with are there again, not outside themselves. Mm-hmm. Like Jesus literally is your brother. Mm-hmm. If you are connecting with, you know, any of the Buddhas or, you know, Isis or any wise, you know, here in this part of the world, shamanism, if you are connecting with elders from anywhere, it's really in your DNA. Mm-hmm. And so there again, it's not outside yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the thing. And recognizing your spiritual DNA, this is huge. Because I mean, I know I come from many different lineages, and someone said, have you done your DNA sampling yet? I'm like, there's everything in me. I could tell you this already. Mm-hmm. I'm African, I'm Egyptian, I'm Greek. And everyone was, you're not African. I'm like, oh, no. Trust me. I have some African spiritual ancestors out there that have watched over me more than anybody. Mm-hmm. So people right now, from what I'm feeling and everything like that, it's our spiritual DNA is bigger than our mind could imagine, because we're so stuck in this human form of, I'm Greek, I'm European, my parents are from Greece. Like that's my human DNA. Mm-hmm. But my spiritual DNA is so much bigger.
Absolutely.
And I feel that even with you, like there's expansion, and you come from, I could feel many different lineages as well. It's not just the one lineage. And it's so funny because I heard Jesus say, well, it's not only me that's your homeboy. Like, you know, you have Buddha and you have Krishna and you have Ganesh and you have this. I'm like, oh yeah, I know. Right. And that I always get, we are just one. We share the same message, which is love, but we just actually, and compassion, but the way we just represent ourselves may be a little different for every single person out there.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's so, I hear the word vivacious. It's so vivacious. I love when they throw these words in my mouth. It's like, okay, where are we going with that one? But just to explain a little bit with, I know you work with light energy and all this, but do you just, when you're working, do you tap into the all, which you are, or is it certain energies that you tap into? I don't even know why I'm asking that question, but that's the question they're asking.
I pretty much connect with my higher self. I consider myself source, all that is. I have access to creation energy. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to tell you that Kuan Yin has never shown up. It's mm-hmm. really, really interesting. Last summer, I'd heard the name. I had never read mm-hmm. a thing about her. I had never really had a deep conversation with anybody about her. However, in class last summer, Kuan Yin just kept showing up over and over. And so finally I read a book about her, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the mother of self-compassion. Mm-hmm. Of course she was showing up in those classes with those people and me and my situation. But I still don't consciously tap into anything besides my higher self. And if Kuan Yin is going to show up, Jesus used to show up a lot. And I used to love the way that Jesus showed up. He showed up in like a white button down and jeans. And and
he's
like,
cool.
and yeah, I mean, it was a flowy white shirt and everything, but, and he just came in with this like, oh, like love, like you just can't express in words. So yeah, Jesus is going to show up. And yes, you know, Isis showed up last week, about the time I got some real information about monatomic gold, that the energy is just fantastic and beautiful. And like the things are going in my body since that energy showed up are fantastic, but I'm still not ever consciously tapping into anything but my higher consciousness, but my higher self, and whatever aspect of me that chooses to show up and share their knowledge is I'm an allowance of.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. I like that. Seems that we're on that same page. So what are some limiting thoughts or beliefs that you see a pattern with in individuals?
Well, the big one that's showing up lately is the that you complete me energy, the needing a partner to just complete you, to bring in any missing pieces. Like you need to have a relationship with this person to receive this piece that you feel like, oh, okay, like I feel way more like me when I'm in presence with this person. And when you realize that you can't see it in someone else if it is not in you, and that you don't need anyone else to complete you, then you can have more fulfilling relationships with the other people that are in your lives. And it becomes complementary and enhancing and more fun without, don't deny any of that. But that's a big one, that you need someone else to complete you. That's what's shown up the most recently. Another limiting thought, well, this is really also really interesting. Diets. You've got some of the most spiritual people out there claiming that you can't be spiritual if you're not vegan. Well,
so I want to laugh at that one.
and there's a part of me that really wants to be vegan. I don't want animals to suffer for me. However, there is really something in like a good long cooked stock that my body is craving. So I'm not eating, tons, and I find myself, yesterday was the first day I had any like animal protein from a meat source in several days. And it was just like, okay, it's time. And I'm coaching. I find that, when I move my brain over and I let source come in, I'm coaching people often to just stop being so, spirituality doesn't have to look the same way for the same person. I fully believe that one day I will be able to be vegan and healthy, but at this point in time, there's something that my body's requiring from this stock. And so I'm allowing it and I'm finding peace in that. So yeah, those are my top two lately.
I love that you mentioned the food thing. And there's a reason why you mentioned that, most likely, because Spirit always says to me, Zach, spirituality is just a way of your life. It's not a fad diet. It's not sitting on a pillow and chanting away 1,000 different mantras, but it's who you are in your essence when no one is really truly watching.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And it's so interesting because a couple of years ago, they grossed me out with chicken, and I can't eat chicken for the life of me. But I just made stock the other day with chicken bones. And I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to eat this. Like, this is next level. Like, for me to make this, like, come on. I couldn't stop drinking my own broth.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept on hearing, you need that. You need that. I was like, oh, okay. Because I'm usually vegetarian, vegan. And it's so interesting because there's times I'll hear Spirit say to me, go and get yourself a good piece of meat because you're going to go on a dip soon. It's like my energy is going to dip and I need to have that strength in order to be able to sustain. I'm just like, really? You want me to eat a piece of meat? Like, oh, okay. Guide me to where you want me to get this piece of meat from.
Yeah. I mean, I do choose to go with, pasture raised and, all that kind of stuff. I would like to know that everything is sourced as healthily as possible if I'm going to engage in that. So, but yeah, that happens to be a big one. It's kind of like moving from, your family programming and your church programming to society programming to now food programming. And, it's just release of programming of all kinds. And when you realize that, yes, some animals did come here to serve consciousness as well. And, I do a lot of work with the bones. I notice that's where the DNA is formed. So I kind of feel like there's something, when I'm moving so much energy for consciousness for lots of people. And I notice my class sizes are getting bigger and it's making me more tired, where I've not ever really experienced that. And it's kind of like, oh, more broth is necessary. So whatever work I'm doing in the bones is doing something with my bones. And there is something that I am receiving. And I feel like I'm going to understand what specific molecules those are. And maybe I'll find a different source for that, but maybe I won't. But some animals have chosen to come aid consciousness in that way.
I truly believe in that as well. I could hear my grandfather saying, sometimes we need to sacrifice an animal. And he's not saying it in a rude way, so no one take offense to this. But I remember when we used to fly over to Greece to see, the family and stuff like that. And we used to it was a far drive from the airport to the village to see my grandparents. And my grandfather, very religious man, very everything. And he never ate meat until certain times of the year. And he had a lot of animals. And we'd come and he'd do his prayer and thank God. And he'd say, I'm going to go sacrifice a piece of lamb right now. I'm going to sacrifice the lamb. And I'll never forget, because he used to pray and literally catch whatever lamb that came to him.
Yeah.
And sacrifice that. It was the lamb came to him. I'll never forget this as a child. I'm like, wait, that lamb just walked to him. Like, it was the weirdest thing, right? And it was like, he gave gratitude to the lamb, talked to the lamb. Thank you. You're going to sacrifice, just because the road was clear for my kids to come to see. I feel like crying, kids to come to see him, as my grandfather coming through, obviously. And it was like, when we have this respect and this compassion for the animals, you know what? They're there to serve us, just like we're there to serve humanity, regardless if it's an animal or a human being. So that's the wisdom from my grandfather that just came through. Just have compassion for everything. Absolutely. So yeah. Whew, wow. This was a beautiful conversation that we had today. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. I always love it to meet people on this level.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your light. Thank you for being who you are, authentically you, and this beautiful big energy that you hold to shift humanity, because we need that. And it's so nice to look in the mirror to see someone else, in their shoes at that capacity. It's just a blessing to walk into my sisters and see that to that level.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been such It's been so beautiful. And I just feel like all of a sudden it's kind of like, oh, whew. And like everything in my system is like, oh yes. Whew. So it was so beautiful. And I appreciate the opportunity to meet you.
Yeah, it was fun. And Alabama. I always said I want to go to Alabama to meet a nice Southern boy.
It's a beautiful place. It is. I mean, I couldn't believe it when I was moved here, and I couldn't love it more. The land is beautiful. The people are beautiful, and there's just so much less cellular static. It's a joy.
I've never been to Alabama. Maybe I'll have to come down to Alabama one day. I just like saying the word Alabama.
Yeah, well, by all means, you're always welcome. Give me a call if you do.
For sure.
Okay.
Thank you from the depths of my heart for being on the podcast today and sharing your light with everyone. So anyone that's interested in working with Sherri and really tapping into who you truly are and shining your light and releasing the traumas and the pains and the sufferings of the past, all of her social handles are in the show notes just below. Connect with her if you feel aligned to her. Allow yourself to be in your true essence, your divine essence, your sovereign self, because when you're in that place and know that you are the omnipresence of source, nothing else exists other than the peace and harmony that you are within yourself. Until we connect again, thank you for listening to Wise Woman Wednesday. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Unfuck Your Mind. Head over to iTunes and leave your 5-star review and comment to get uprising the charts so we can get this incredible wisdom into more ears worldwide. In the show notes, you'll find all affiliate links to what we've mentioned in the podcast or products Zach loves to use. Until we connect again, unfuck 1% of your thoughts and watch how your life shifts.